This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Listen, for a long time, we've known of Donald Trump's affinity for strongmen, his proclivities toward authoritarianism, his fondness for brutal dictators and genocidal maniacs like Adolf Hitler. It's reported by one of his many wives, that he slept with a copy of Mein Kampf on his nightstand. I don't know whether that's true or not. But based on the story that was reported yesterday in Vice, it seems a lot more likely. Every once in a while, there's a story that comes along relative to this administration that is, there's no other word for it, heartbreaking. Vice reported yesterday, staggering number of hysterectomies happening at ICE facility, whistleblowers say. We like to call ourselves a moral nation. Conservatives are very fond of proclaiming that we are a pro-life nation. That cannot be true if this story is true. How can all lives matter, conservatives, if we are sterilizing desperate immigrant women who want nothing more than a better life? Who have come here and had their families stripped away from them, their children ripped away from them, some of them while breastfeeding. Then they're thrown into a prison cell. Some of them have been raped and abused. And now they find themselves sterilized against their will. I'm going to read some of this article and talk about it a little bit. A whistleblower complaint filed Monday by several legal advocacy groups accuses a detention center of performing a staggering number of hysterectomies on immigrant women, as well as failing to follow procedures meant to keep both detainees and employees safe from the coronavirus. The complaint, filed on behalf of several detained immigrants and a nurse named Dawn Wooten, details several accounts of recent, quote, jarring medical neglect at the Irwin County Detention Center in Ocilla, Georgia, which is run by the private prison company LaSalle South Corrections and houses people incarcerated by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. In interviews with Project South, a Georgia nonprofit, multiple women said that hysterectomies were stunningly frequent among immigrants detained at the facility. How can we call ourselves a moral nation if we do nothing about this? It talks in the Bible about how we should treat the least of these and desperately poor human beings seeking nothing more than a better life for themselves. They are the least of these. They're fleeing violence and insane poverty to come to the United States. And when they get here, they're abused and they're tortured. And Donald Trump is at the helm of that. Reading from the article, when I met all these women who had surgeries, I thought this was like an experimental concentration camp, said one woman, who said she'd met 5 women who'd had hysterectomies after being detained between October and December 2019. The woman said that immigrants at Irwin are often sent to see one particular gynecologist outside the facility. It was like they're experimenting with their bodies. This is one single facility. Between October and December. October, November, December of one single year. In one case, Wooten said, a woman who ended up with a hysterectomy was not properly anesthetized and overheard the doctor say that he'd taken out the wrong ovary. That woman had to go back to get her other ovary removed as well, Wooten said. We've questioned among ourselves, like, goodness, he's taking everybody's stuff out, said Wooten, who was a full-time employee at Irwin until July. That's his specialty. He's the uterus collector. I know that's ugly. Is he collecting these things or something? She continued. Everybody he sees, he's taking all their uteruses out, or he's taken their tubes out. What in the world? Pro-life. Moral country. Wooten also said she'd talked to several detained immigrants who'd had hysterectomies but didn't know why. One detained immigrant told Project South that ahead of the scheduled procedure, she was given multiple different explanations about what would happen and why it was necessary. And if you want your heart broken, listen to this quote. If it wasn't for my faith in God, I think I would have gone insane and just break down and probably gone as far as hurting myself, the woman said. There are a lot of people here who end up in a medical trying to kill themselves because of how crazy it is. This is the United States of America. And these women are so desperate, they're considering suicide under our watch at the hands of Donald Trump while he's at the helm. This is why people want to abolish ICE. This is why. How are we any different? How are we any different than nations that have gone through and sterilized human beings? There's more to the article. I suggest you read it. I'm not going to make it through it. But in July, I believe, of 1933, the German government under Adolf Hitler passed the law for the prevention of progeny with hereditary diseases. And individuals who were subject to the law were those men and women who suffered from any of 9 conditions: hereditary feeble-mindedness, schizophrenia, manic depressive or bipolar disorder, hereditary epilepsy, Huntington's, chorea, a fatal form of dementia, genetic blindness, deafness, severe hereditary physical deformity, and chronic alcoholism. The law also allowed public health officials to apply the law to those like Roma, which are pejoratively referred to as gypsies. How's that any different than what we're doing? How are we any better? Remember the poem from Martin Niemöller. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. We have a choice. We need desperately to turn this ship around. What's the next step? What's the next logical conclusion if history is any guide? That we go from hysterectomies, from sterilization, forced sterilization, unwilling sterilization of immigrants, to what? Killing them? Donald Trump is a monster. And for those of you out there who say that I'm not voting for Joe Biden because he's not my guy and there's no difference between him and Donald Trump, read this story. Because I goddamn guarantee you, the women who have been sterilized against their will dream of a Joe Biden as president. They know the difference between a Donald Trump and a Joe Biden. Anyway, read this article from Vice. I will link to it. I appreciate you all. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.